Good morning and good evening. My name is Rahaf Alsaieri, and I will be discussing the topic of education in Saudi Arabia. So to start off, I'm going to start off with a brief history of education in women of Saudi Arabia. The form of public schooling in Saudi Arabia started in the 1960s. Queen Effat King Faisal's beloved wife, fought enthusiastically for education of females here in Saudi Arabia. Initially, there was a strong opposition from other parts of Saudi Arabia, and the ratio of boys to girls studying in primary schools were 22% boys and 2% girls. After that, in 1989, the educational system of Saudi Arabia had more than 14,000 educational institutes, such as like universities and so on. All books, health services were covered by the government, and financial support was given as an incentive to women for them to continue studying, their higher education. And after that, it boomed from 20,000 up to 40,000 in the same time period. The Saudi government has started instituting a series of initiatives for enhancing access of higher education for women, including the establishment of Princess Noura bint Abdul Rahman University, which is designed to become the world's largest center of higher education of women worldwide. Currently, more than 300 higher education colleges exist for women in the country alongside universities, and women represent more than 56% of total number of Saudi university students, and more than 20% of those are benefiting from overseas scholarships. The percentage is expected to increase in the coming years. Saudi women have dazzled international observance by becoming pioneers in a variety of fields, prominently in science and research, and by receiving international awards. These achievements have been reflected in the international reports and statistics. The 2009 Global Education Digest of UNESCO showed that Saudi women come remarkably ahead of Western women in terms of obtaining academic degrees. Also, the 2009 Gender Gap Report ranked Saudi Arabia as 25th among countries in terms of gap between the two sexes. Women in higher education in the kingdom are witnessing a development qualitatively and quantitatively in terms of developing programs, initiatives, and strategies. The development provides an educational opportunity to women and plays an important role in realizing equity between the two sexes in job opportunities and overseas scholarship. The Saudi Scholarship Program provides funding for about 30,000 students to study at the US universities alone in 2012, provided and more than 130 in 46 universities around the world. An impressive number of these 130,000 students, of which 20% are women. And that percentage rises dramatically when you consider more recent years. The Saudi Scholarship Program provides funding for about 30,000 Saudi scholarship recipients to study at the US. And according to statistics provided by the Saudi Arabia Cultural Mission, this year that Saudi government has committed about 25% of its total budget to education, which means 45 billion. Effat University is the first women's only higher education institution in Saudi Arabia to offer entrepreneurship and visual and digital production. Also, Queen Effat Al-Nayam, her soul rest in peace, made the first school for females, which was Dar al-Hanan. And I'd like to end my presentation with a quote of our late King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz. When we talk about the comprehensive development our country is witnessing, we cannot ignore the role of Saudi women and their participation in this development. The productive role of women has been a definite result of great investment that the country has dedicated to the field of education for all its citizens, men and women. As a result, Saudi women have been able to earn the highest educational credentials, which enabled them to work in different fields. Saudi women have proven their ability to handle responsibilities with great success, whether through their principles, duty as mothers, or as professionals. We look forward to women acquiring a major role in a way that will promote the interests of this nation in a basis of Sharia. Thank you.
You can start. Thank you, Rahaf. My name is Jawarai Khan, and a little about myself is I'm from the psychology department in Effat University, and I will be discussing the topic of civic engagement in Saudi Arabia. So basically, we came up with this topic because it's actually a course in our university, and it really intrigued us, and it's sort of it's something relatable, and we thought that we could share it with you, and you could definitely understand on a mutual basis. So the first example, like Rahaf said, is of Queen Effat who can be considered as the first female to upbring or make or come up with the concept of an educational institution for females only in Saudi Arabia. So this is basically, I'm discussing civic engagement, where I'm going to gradually take you through time of how civic engagement was here in this country from since long ago in history and has graduated more and more into the present situation. So in historical examples could be of how the Hajj and Umrah situation is in this country. As we all know, it is a very famous meeting point, a very prestigious, for Muslims is a very prestigious area where Muslims from all around the world come and travel under different conditions to perform pilgrimage. And a very basic and a very fundamental form of civic engagement, social service and help that Saudi Arabia provides from long ago in history is, as you can see from the pictures, social workers and people who work in Hajj and Umrah camps voluntarily to assist all those in need. Another concept is of a waqf, which is an Arabic word for basically giving. And it is voluntarily giving, in which people here, for example, would go out on the road, donate a bench in a park or a building or a mosque, or lay out food for anyone, for the homeless or for the needy, which is basically just a voluntarily sense of responsibility that all citizens have. And these are the basic fundamental sources or examples of civic engagement that can be seen from since way past in history. However, now moving into civic engagement now, what's interesting is civic engagement is not only just something that is flourishing greatly in this country. What's interesting is it is very much pioneered by women in this country, and we can see that very obviously. Hajj volunteers now are special, we have special institutions here where they're trained and they are taught how to deal with any situation, any problem. So civic engagement here is taken really seriously. Then there are many examples. For example, there's an example called the Jeddah Friends program, where this is an institution and an NGO which focuses on repairing old houses in the country and making a better place for any homeless or ramshackle houses for people to live. A very famous season in this in our Muslim year is the Ramadan season, where an organization called Red Crescent focuses on providing food, and at the moment of fast, when Muslims break their fast, they provide food free of cost to anyone out on the street who is stuck at that time. Other examples is the National Center for Youth Research, which is very interesting because here they research on people from age group of 15 to 30 and research how social change here, as you can see from our presentations, social change here is something that is drastically improving. And research is done from people on the age group of 15 to 30 as to how the social change is affecting them, and their situations are analyzed and observed so as to assess their future needs or demands, for example, as to how we can help them. Civic engagement also is part of the curriculum now in many schools and universities, where this topic is taught and instilled in children from a very young age, which was not done as of before. Then individual institutions such as Effat University and other schools and schools and organizations here make their own NGOs, and some examples I have of are, for example, of Build Africa, which is in the American International School in Saudi Arabia, and Young Women's Organization, both of which are founded by women and young leading model women here in Saudi Arabia who aim to make our society a better place here. Then, as you can see, there are some logos of some famous programs and civic engagement institutions. The very famous and a very old it's from quite long ago, from 1976, was founded, is King Faisal Foundation, which focuses on concepts such as global outreach, enriching knowledge, rewarding scholars both from locally, regionally, internationally, in terms of both educationally and religiously. And the quote is, King's Faisal vision was to ensure that a humanitarian element is embedded into the plans and policies that influence people's lives regardless of their color, gender, or faith, contributing to a better world. Then another example is of Al-Faisaliya Women Welfare Society, which was established in 1976, which focused on concepts such as social, health, cultural factors, rehabilitation for the low-income families or needy people, childcare, and educational facilities. Then we have an example of Al-Ahli social programs, which are basically subdivided into charity organizations, orphanages, and their orphanages had a very famous program called the School Bag Project, where a number of students who could not afford it were provided with schools and stationery and school opportunities and items for free. They also had, their program also had voluntary work in the company, which they kept people as internships so that they could train them. They also had a disabled program where in their company they had a ratio of some people where they would train and employ people in their special needs program and keep them in their company. Another example is the Muslim World League that is also established in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and is also a member of the ECOSOC Council in the UN. Another example is of Sultan bin Abdulaziz Al Saud Foundation, which focuses on humanitarian services, medical and educational communication programs, science and technology, charitable funds for patients, and medical treatments for all. There's another very famous institution called the Effat, which is an NGO that aims to promote organ donations and increase awareness in the society for organ transplants and why and how necessary it is for people who are in need. There's also one more thing called the Saudi Cancer Foundation, is also a relatively new foundation in 2004, which is all about raising awareness of cancer and giving cancer patients moral support and having sort of volunteer programs and a place where they can be and we can improve their life conditions and help them in whatever way we can. So I'd like to conclusively say that surprisingly and this is very something that is a matter of pride to us, how in this country, this is an article that I found very interesting from Arab News, which what I found interesting is in this country now, people are taking up the idea of community service, social work, civic engagement, all sorts of volunteer work as a responsibility upon themselves. And maybe it's a result of globalization, maybe it's a result of the influences from our religion, but people, and more openly since social change is being brought about here, women feel that they have the right and the independence to go about and initiate any sort of social change at whatever level they can, and it is being recognized, and I feel that that is a very big matter of pride to us. That would be all from my part. Now I'll give it over to Hanan.
Hello, my name is Hanan Althaqafi. I'm an engineering student at Effat, and we initiated the club 3 years ago, the Model United Nations Club at Effat, and it brings me great honor to have this teleconference with Chestnut Hill University, GEM, and the UN Academic Program in New York. Unlike my colleagues, my topic is not so much of education, and I took up the fun part, which is art. I just chose my favorite artists in different fields, and I want to give a small brief about what they do. And so my first example is in theater. Dr. Maisah Sobaihi is the director and the writer of a play called Head Over Heels. It discusses polygamy and the cultural norms of the Saudi marriages. I think this is a really common question that we get from Westerners about marriage and polygamy. Is it okay for us? Do we accept it or not? And so this play answers all of these questions in a really interesting way. It's comedy to us and education to outsiders, basically. The next topic is on fashion. I had two examples. The first is Ala Al-Balkhi. She's a fashion designer who was based in Jeddah. Her brand, Fyunka, it means the bow, basically. And these are two pictures of her pieces, which basically, one of them, the red one, has pictures of women wearing the abaya, which is the traditional clothing for women, which is what I'm wearing and all of us are wearing today. And the other picture is of, the other bag has a picture of something called battula, which is a really old traditional face piece. I think you might have seen it or not. It's really beautiful, and I love how she integrates a culture and history with her art pieces. The second fashion designer is Mr. Nassim, and basically there's this is him at the very left, and the picture in the middle is what a Saudi guy would be wearing in Saudi Arabia, basically. It's called a thobe, and it's designed this way through history because of the temperature. And I mean, it's Saudi Arabia. It's really warm, and during summer it's usually white or of light colors, and in winter it would be black or brown. The fashion designer's idea was that people were into modern clothing, jeans and t-shirts, and he was trying to redefine the cultural thobe to make it more modernized and interesting for youth to be interested in wearing. And the picture at the very right is a piece of his latest collection. And the third, I'll be moving into display arts. And this is a picture of Ghada Al-Hassan. She's an artist from Al-Qatif, which is near Dammam, if you've heard of Dammam. And basically, she graduated from, she did, I think, Arabic studies in college, but she found herself more into arts, and she was interested in philosophy, science, and history, and she tries to integrate all of these things in her art pieces. This is a picture of one of her pieces, and in the next slides there'll be other pictures of her other pieces as well. And her last piece is called A Window of a Different Kind, and it's I find it really beautiful. It's in the next slide. Yeah, this is the one. These are actually sculptures, and they have small calligraphies on them. It's a very interesting piece of art to me personally. My next artist is Ayman Zidani, and he graduated from biomedical studies, and it's interesting how all of these people did different things as their bachelors, but then they found their heart with art, basically. This is his own self-portrait, and this is an example of his art. And in the next slides, there will be also examples of his art pieces. The one on the right is called Identity, and the one on the left is called Phantom. I'm not sure what the first one was called, honestly, but I'm just I really like his pieces. And then my last example is in architecture. If you would move to that slide. Yeah, this is Sami Angawi. He's an architect, and he used to work in the preservations of the holy city of Mecca. after he worked there, I think he did a lot of research in that area, and then he discovered so many elements in architecture that can be used to make our modern homes more economic and beautiful. And he has designed his own house, which he lives in today. It's not exactly a house, it's more of a palace, but it's really beautiful. If this is one of the pictures, and in the next slides, this is actually his house, and he uses light and the weather and the wind in a really interesting way. I've not been to the house, but I heard that he does not have an air conditioner, and this is almost crazy in the weather in Jeddah. But for him to do that, it shows really good sense of architecture, and all of these things he has found through studying historic homes and historic buildings in Mecca and in Jeddah generally. And he combined all of these things in his home, and so many pieces that he used in his home, like the doors, the windows, were collected vintage second-hand stuff. So he would buy them from old houses that are being renovated, and he would integrate it in his home. The last picture, this is the swimming pool. His idea for this part of the house was that Mecca and Jeddah are cities in which a lot of visitors from the Islamic world come. And he tried to integrate India, Persia, and Morocco in his house. So the swimming pool has a Persian look, and some of the parts of the house looks somewhat Indian, and he tried to integrate all of these because to him they resemble the Hijazi culture, which is the culture of Jeddah, Mecca, and Medina. By that I end my presentation, and I'll be looking forward to your questions if you have any.